judge for the Washington County up in northwest Arkansas. Joseph, welcome to the program, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Harrell. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. So, first,
good morning to the audience.
Do what now?
I said good morning to your audience.
Yes, absolutely. They're probably on their first sip of coffee. And of course, I'm way ahead of them at this point.
I'm halfway through mine. So.
Okay, good. Well, so tell us a little bit about what's it like being the Washington County judge.
Pretty incredible experience. The past couple of years have been obviously met with a lot of focus. We came in with a focus on building better leadership in the county. You get better leaders, they make better decisions. You get better services, you get a better county. And so undoing some of the things that have been going on over the past few decades. They haven't had a Republican county judge in Washington County in nearly 40 years. So here I come in and I see things differently. And so we go in and start looking at vision, executing on those visions, and really start to turn the dime on a lot of areas.
I see here that the budget has been reduced by almost $1 million while at the same time maintaining county services. Tell us about that. Did you get any pushback on that?
A ton of pushback. When we got in office, we got a $65 million budget. Now it's almost 68, but it's about half of that is the sheriff's budget, half is mine, the county judge. I have 15 directors. I started walking through strategically each department head's budget, starting with A, animal shelters, all the way to B, veterans. $1 million almost animal shelter budget, and it just caught me by surprise that we would have that much spent on an animal shelter. I wanted to see it. It's beautiful. We got great leadership there. But when I got all the way down to the road department, then next to the veterans department, the veterans had a $100,000 budget. Surprised me. So we started to say, okay, how can we be smart about running the animal shelter to really begin to support and do things for our veterans? So we began to strategically, we outsource some of our veterinarian services. So now when there's an animal that's ill or sick, we take it to the veterinarian. We know how much it's going to cost us versus having a veterinarian on staff. And we may have 2 or 3 weeks go where there's no surgeries, and we're still paying the types of benefits and dollars. So we went through, and when we finished going through all of their various budgets, we reduced it by $1 million, which is unheard of in county government across the state, let alone here in Washington County.
It is absolutely, you're absolutely right. It is unheard of, but I want to kind of back up for a second. So you had you said $1 million. Was it $1 million on animal?
Right at $1 million for the animal shelter. But
I just think that's incredible. And then we're not spending that on veterans. I mean, I love animals.
Oh, nowhere near it.
And I want to be, I want to take care of animals and everything else. But I mean, people are more important, especially our veterans. They're more important than animals.
Absolutely. Because I said that you can take care of every animal in this shelter, and they will never go out and pick up a veteran and take care of a veteran. But you can take care of every veteran in our Washington County area, and they can go and take every animal out of the animal shelter, adopt them, take care of them, et cetera. So I just, again, common sense, we love animals, but I put a little higher priority on our people, especially our veterans.
So you've cut, like you said, unheard of, reduced the government by $1 million. That's fantastic. And I don't think it's a surprise that with that kind of conservative leadership, we're talking with Washington County Judge Joseph Wood, that you're also the most transparent county when it comes to attaining records, public records online. I believe it was the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics. They came out with a study, and Washington County was #1. Tell us about that.
That's correct. That's correct. Probably in January, February of this year, UCA, University of Central Arkansas, in conjunction, obviously, with the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics, did a study. They believe that the best government is the most transparent government, and they went and did a study on all 75 county judges and how they operate and run their counties. We, at the end of the day, a couple of months ago, they released the studies, and Washington County was the most most accessible, most accountable when it came to 3 areas that they focused on: fiscal areas, administrative.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
It's election day, midterm election day here in America. It is election day here in Arkansas. Welcome to the program, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine here. Want you to be a part of that. One of the ways you can do that is to call or text 870-275-9799. If you want to be a part of the program, you can also go over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Conduit News, or YouTube and sound off there as well. Wow. I mean, Trump's rally last night, that was a pretty big deal. You know what you're going to start to hear? First reports, they'll come about mid-afternoon. Sometime today, mid-afternoon, you're going to hear a buzzword or a buzz phrase. It's called the exit poll. Remember this? Yeah, you know, it's that poll that everybody Googles and is searching for about 2:30. Like, oh, I heard a headline. Well, what are the exit polls? Can I see the exit polls? Nobody can find them. You just got to rely on whatever the media is telling you the exit polls say. Ooh, exit polls looking good for Democrats. That's what you're going to hear. Oh, bad for Republicans. You always hear this. You heard this in 2016 with Trump. Anyway, some people are saying don't pay attention to exit polling tomorrow because it's just propaganda. All meant to suppress the vote, all meant to get you to not go to the polls before they close at 7 or, whenever. I'm here in Arkansas. I believe they close at 7:30. So, matter of fact, there's a lot of voter suppression out there. Here's a Breitbart article from yesterday. Trump rips CNN's fake suppression polls and low ratings, where he said, so funny to see CNN fake suppression polls and false rhetoric. Watch for real results Tuesday. We are lucky CNN's ratings are so low. Don't fall for the suppression game. Go out and vote. Remember, we now have perhaps the greatest economy, jobs in the history of our country. Remember a couple weeks ago, jobs, not mobs. Yeah, I think that's definitely a good one. I saw where Rasmussen actually had a new poll out that said generically the Republicans were up 1 point in the generic ballot. But look, these polls, I'm telling you, you can't really pay attention to them. They're the same people that were all so wrong. I just don't think Americans are actually taking these polls and surveys anymore. I don't think it's legitimate. That's why yesterday, I know some of you guys out there saw it. We interviewed Mr. Larry Schweikert he's an author, he's a historian. He actually predicted Trump's victory back in 2016. We interviewed him yesterday on our digital platforms. We're going to re-air that interview for you coming up at 7:30 this morning, where he talks not about the polls, but he talks about the early voting numbers, okay? Now, the numbers are not going to be precisely, as accurate because it's it'll be, about 24 hours old, but still. The early vote is looking very good for Republicans and not really that great for Democrats in terms of how they performed, during the last election cycle. Anyway, we're going to have all of that, and we're going to check in with several guests today on the program. Several state representatives. We're going to be talking with David Sterling for briefly. Just want to let them have a chance to talk to you guys out there one more time in the state of Arkansas. I want to give them the chance to say, hey, look, we got to get out and vote. So it's very important to vote. So we're going to be talking to really just a plethora of state reps. We'll be talking with David Sterling, the Supreme Court candidate. Also, we've got Congressman French Hill, who should be calling in for about a 5-minute interview around 7:50 this morning. Also be talking with the Libertarian chairman, the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Arkansas, Michael Packo will be back on the program. Then we've got, I guess, Senator-elect Mark Johnson's going to swing by or going to talk to us. He'll be, I think, on the way to the polls. A lot of people out there going to the polls right now. And so it's a very exciting day, Election Day, here in Arkansas, across the country. I want to take a moment, and I want to play for you a moment of the Rush Limbaugh and his address last night to the crowd in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, his hometown. It was very electric. It was also, it just felt right. You know what I mean? It just felt right seeing Rush Limbaugh in his hometown addressing the people there who were obviously very proud of him. And I thought to myself, and I saw somebody tweeted, you know, when to see Donald Trump and Rush Limbaugh embrace, and how this is Donald Trump's Republican Party now, and by, you know, and embracing Rush Limbaugh, what a big deal that is. You know, you think about Rush Limbaugh and what he has done, what he has meant for my profession, what he has meant for not just conservatism, but specifically for the industry that I'm able to be in every single day. That is not made possible without somebody like Rush Limbaugh pioneering a talk radio format where people just listen to a guy talk for 3 hours. This was not something that was that was done until Rush Limbaugh came on the scene, and so it's extremely. Anytime Rush speaks, you know, you want to listen. Now, not to mention his commitment to conservatism and how that was a sellable commodity, if you will, because it was breaking through the mainstream media. What Rush Limbaugh did to say he was a pioneer is an understatement. I mean, this guy is a terraformer, right? I mean, it's amazing what he has accomplished. And I think to myself, you know, I wonder how Rush Limbaugh felt when he fought the Clinton administration, when he fought everything that they were doing that was, you know, for bigger government, even though Bill Clinton with a straight face says the era of big government is over. I think to myself, you know, after fighting Clinton and then George H.W. Bush getting in there, and then, of course, H.W. growing government, I just wonder how he feels up to this point. Now here we are, and yeah, obviously lesser of two evils, H.W. Bush versus what the left wanted to do, you know, obviously. But you just kind of wonder, it just seems like a lot of consistent, you know, talk radio, Rush Limbaugh going at it at work every day, 3 hours a day, and it pays off, and it just kind of feels like this is a culmination of a lot of hard work. I guess that's what I'm trying to say in a really inefficient way. Here is Rush Limbaugh, part of what he said to his hometown audience at the Trump rally last night in Cape Girardeau.
It's an amazing thing that Donald Trump has done. You know, Donald Trump doesn't need any of the grief that he gets. Donald Trump doesn't need any of it. Donald Trump could do and has done whatever he wants. He's one of the most successful people in America, and he doesn't need this. He doesn't need to put up with the abuse. He doesn't need to put up with but he does. He does because he sincerely believes that America's headed in the wrong track, and it needs to be put back on the right track. They say we're divisive. They say we're divisive, but we're not divisive. We're defending an America that is strayed from our founding. Nothing to do with race, nothing to do with gender, nothing to do with any of these identity politics labels. It has to do with culture. It has to do with protecting and defending the Constitution. It has, pure and simple. So I think it's a wonderful thing that you've come out here tonight. I could not be more honored to be part of one of these rallies. You know, the bond, folks, I'm telling you, the bond that exists between you and everybody else that's been to a Trump rally is something that politicians envy, and the people in Washington really haven't taken the time to understand why you voted for Trump. They just think you're stupid for doing so. And there's so much to learn about why you have. There's so much to learn about the potential greatness for America, to learn why you're here, why you support Trump. But they just chalk it up to the fact, well, you're not educated. Well, you're poor. Yeah, you're this or that. and you're angry. You're not angry. You love people. You want your country to be the greatest it can be, and you finally got somebody willing to help you do it. Somebody to stand up for you. Somebody to stand with you. We, are hanging by a thread. Do you realize, folks, there is nobody, I should say nobody. There's some on the Republican side who would attempt to do what the president's done. But for the most part, there's nobody who would do what Donald Trump has done. Nobody would buck the system. Nobody would take it on. If he hadn't run, who among anybody in politics could you have glommed onto to have this kind of chance to make America great again? There wasn't anybody that was actually standing for this. Everybody gets caught up in what's going on in Washington, inside the establishment. You were being ignored. You weren't being listened to. You weren't being paid any attention to it. Even now, the real anger at Trump is actually aimed at you for having elected him. But he doesn't need this. He puts up with this, and thank God he does. Because he's indefatigable. The man simply doesn't get tired. He doesn't wear out. For those of you, there's somebody from Rio Linda here. Indefatigable, doesn't get tired.
Stop.
Just keeps going.
That would be based off of the word fatigued. All right, so that was Rush Limbaugh there, and there's more of it if you want to take a look at it. What Rush is saying there is exactly right. No surprise. Is there anybody other than Donald Trump that would have done what Donald Trump has done in terms of, like he said, bucking the system? And the answer really is no. Not anybody that could have won Michigan and Pennsylvania and Florida and Ohio. You know what I'm saying? Certainly not anybody that's going to do it the way Donald Trump has done it. When Rush says there, everybody else would get caught up with what's going on in Washington and the reaction of Washington, you see. And that's exactly right. Or they get caught up in responding because in a certain way, or being outraged in a certain way because the media is telling them to react a certain way, and Donald Trump doesn't care, right? And you have to understand, there has to be an enormous, and obviously we know that President Trump is a very confident guy. But one of the reasons so many people, whether they go down to Little Rock and the Marble Palace or they go to Washington, D.C., and they kind of get weak at the knees, is because it's not just that everybody who's for big government is coming up to them asking them to break the promises they made to their constituents, like on a daily basis. I mean, anybody would wear down in that, but it's the collective attitude or the collective feelings of Washington, D.C. People would tend, if everybody in D.C. who are your closest proximity to, have to work with, if they're mad at you, and you're going to know about it, and it makes your life harder because this is where you have to work day in and day out. It becomes an abusive work environment. So it's easier to forget the people back home and worry about, whether or not this guy's going to, smile at me, wave at me, or whether or not he's going to act like he doesn't see me when we're, passing each other in the elevator or in the office halls or whatever of the Capitol, or, you see what I'm saying? And I think, Donald Trump just, that's not a concern for him. It's not a concern for him. Matter of fact, he could probably take the angle that the more rumblings you hear in the Washington establishment about whatever Donald Trump has done, if they're negative rumblings, they're probably good for the American people. So, listen, I'll be the first to tell you, I am amazed, absolutely amazed that the country is in the place that it's in at this point. I was not a Donald Trump supporter in the primary. I did not support him. I did vote for him for president over Hillary, obviously, and here we are, and it has been just nothing but, pleasant surprise after pleasant surprise. Do we want to keep that trajectory? Do we want to keep going in the same direction? The answer is yes. Our whiteboard says votes have consequences, so go out and vote. Call your relatives in other states. Call your relatives here in Arkansas. Go out and vote. You must go vote. Those who are in District 2 listening on 101.1 The Answer at a Little Rock, you guys got to get out there, got to vote. It's French Hill, the Republican, versus Clark Tucker, the Democrat. The choice is obvious. We'll be talking with Congressman French Hill coming up in the next hour, towards the end of the next hour. We have all of these guys out there. Rick Crawford needs your support out there today. Bruce Westerman, as well as Steve Womack. All of these guys, this Republican delegation, okay, bottom line, they're not going to go to Washington and impeach the President of the United States or vote to impeach the President. So we've got the whole Arkansas. You got to go out. You got to do your responsibility, do your job, and also got to call your relatives in other states, especially if they're states like Florida, especially if they're states like California and some of those districts. I would wonder if anybody out there listening in Arkansas has a family member or a friend who's in one of these battleground districts in California. Feel free to text me, 870-275-9799. I mean, think about the Senate races. Tennessee to our east, Missouri to our north. Surely you guys got family up in Missouri that you can call and say, hey, listen, want to make sure you get out and you throw Claire McCaskill out of office and vote for Josh Hawley. And then, of course, Marsha Blackburn to the east. Anyway, we're going to reset, take a break here, and we'll be back here in just a moment. We'll be talking with State Representative Marcus Richmond coming up at 6:33. Don't go anywhere.
And political, can citizens of the county understand and have access to budgets, audits? Do they know when you're having committee meetings and quorum court meetings? Can they go back and look and see what has gone on in the past when it comes to meetings and votes that you've had? And are you doing services and providing services for everyone? And can they find that information out? And so while the first 2 years I was hit constantly by media that he's inaccessible, he's non-transparent, etc., here's an independent study that just came out and said again, you cannot be more transparent in Washington County and how they operate and run their government.
And did the media print this report?
No, they had not. The Dr. Kalulu and his team they called all the top 5 in particular counties and said, hey, county judges, we finished this. This is where you rank, and we would like your local papers to take our op-ed and take the study and run it. And
let's face it, times are tough for the Arkansas General Assembly. They're all waiting for the spotlight exposing public corruption to end, so they won't be under so much scrutiny. And during this time, what if you're a legislator and you need money? What if you're slapped with a huge expense? What if your check for consultant services is late this month? Or maybe you just need extra cash now until payday. When that happens, you can't wait. Hi, I'm Bobby Blackmail for the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank, your trusted source to over 135 lenders to get you short-term cash fast. Use the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank today, and you can have up to $12,500 cash in your checking account tomorrow. Dried-up bribes no longer coming from Medicaid entities? Handled. Extra cash until your hopeful acquittal? Done. And you'll be surprised at how easy it is to get extra cash. Just be an elected official and be comfortable with the status quo, and we'll connect you with a fellow legislator who is ready to loan. It's quick and easy. And don't worry if you can't make the payments, because the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank is designed to help you get through these tough economic times. There are other ways you can pay off your debt, like by voting the way the establishment wants, or by rewarding some with committee chairmanships. So forget about overdraft fees and the spirit of covetousness that sometimes overwhelms the best of lawmakers. Just remember, the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank for short-term cash between colleagues when you need it fast.
Some transactions have long-term consequences.
Paul Harrell, parody. Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, here we go. One more thing on the Cape Girardeau rally. You know, Sean Hannity it was originally reported Sean Hannity was going to speak as well, and then I kind of got a feeling that some people in the management were like, we don't really want you to speak, but you can do your show there. And Fox News was kind of like, Well, President Trump doesn't take no for an answer. President Trump called Hannity up on the stage, and this is what Sean Hannity
I'm going to start by saying, Sean Hannity, come on up, Sean Hannity.
Yeah, we got the applause. He gets up there. Somebody tweeting if there was an Oscar for owning the libs, this was it.
By the way, all those people in the back are fake news.
Oh, man, that's fantastic. You got to know that they just can't stand Hannity. My goodness. Also, they had to listen to Rush Limbaugh. Don't you know that some of them might have become converts just by listening to those two conservative men. There is a story over at the Daily Caller that a Michigan reporter has been fired because she was caught on tape saying the F word in a disparaging way against senatorial candidate John James out of Michigan. The Daily Caller News Foundation's Henry Rogers reports that the reporter was fired after calling Michigan Senate Republican candidate John James looking for an interview, thought she had hung up the phone before leaving a voicemail and saying, quote, effing John James, that would suck, meaning about if he actually wins the Michigan Senate race. And, of course, the Huron Daily Tribune sincerely apologizes to Mr. James, and they fired the reporter. Well, that kind of, I mean, I guess that sucks for the reporter, right? Bet she didn't think that would happen. Which actually, interestingly enough, John James, the Republican candidate from Michigan, he tweeted this, the other night. Let me pull this up. I saw this because I follow Larry Schweikert. John James writes this on Twitter last night at 8:25. Polls have us within 2 points. We need everyone to vote Tuesday. Let's fly. Hashtag Let's Fly Michigan. All right, so there you go. Larry Schweikert is tweeting that he actually thinks there's a chance that John James, the Republican, might win today. Anyway, we will see. I'm telling you, it is very, very exciting. I think the gains in the Senate are going to be a big surprise to the left. But I think the even bigger surprise would be if the Democrats do not take the House. That is going to send the media into seizures, something like that. I mean, Larry Schweikert, which we're going to play the interview for you coming up next hour, he says on the East Coast, there's some races on the East Coast, and those polls are going to close. We're on Central Time here, so those polls are going to close before ours do. But he says on the East Coast, there are some races that are going to kind of be bellwethers, some in Florida, I think one in Virginia. And he said if the media doesn't call those immediately, meaning if the Democrats are even up a little bit, they're going to call them for the Democrats. He says that would be a bad sign for Republicans. But if the polls have been closed for a little while and the East Coast just refuses to call some of these House races for Republicans or Democrats, like they just don't make any call at all, he says that would be an indicator that things are going good for Republicans across the country. So we don't necessarily have to wait until the West Coast time in California. Larry Schweikert said yesterday that we could get some indicators from the East Coast.
I smiled a little bit and laughed and said, well, they're not going to run it. And they said, oh, sure. And I said, well, here it is. And I told them who it was, and it was Arkansas Democrat Gazette. And maybe 3 weeks later, I said, so are they going to run it? Because I didn't want to put it on our website and do any press releases until the paper ran it. And they said, well, they told us they're not going to run it. I said, okay, well, go ahead and send it to the Northwest Arkansas Business Journal. Maybe they will see the validity of it, understanding its business. And you got business leaders out there who are really working hard to serve the business and the community and citizens. And so Northwest Business Journal said that they would be looking at in the upcoming issue. So anyway, we went ahead and did our own press release and put it out there for the citizens of Arkansas. Again, still being transparent, accessible, where the paper is not.
Well, I just, you also said that you were criticized for not being transparent by the media, and now and they don't want to print it. I don't think that's a surprise. So here's my next question. So you're a Republican, Joseph Wood. You say you're the first Republican county judge in Washington County in how long?
Almost 40 years.
Almost 40 years.
40 years. Yep.
Well, so I don't want to take the term deep state and apply it specifically to but maybe there are little smaller microcosms of this, because when we see what goes on at the national level, I'm curious, as being the first Republican in 40 years, is there kind of an allergy in the system to be maybe resist conservative budgeting, resist some of your ideas that are different?
Absolutely. Again, I see things differently. The team that I've assembled, we're seeing things and looking at things differently. We go through the budget every month, my team. And so when it comes to it, we are very much looking at how can we be good stewards of what's been entrusted to us, i.e. the county and the county services and county budget. And so if they can do the work that they do smarter, better, more efficient, more effective, then that's what we're going to do. And again, when you have 40 years of doing it one way and you get an interrupter or a disruptor, if you will, kind of like, I guess, if you will, the president coming into office a few years ago, it's the same thing. It's changing the way business as usual has been done. And again, some people have met with a lot of opposition to that. We'll have election coming up in a couple in 24 hours, and I think people will either double down and say, yes, we like the direction the county has been going. We like the work that this judge has been doing, the team he's assembled, and we're going to double down and put them back in. Or they're going to say, yep, we need to retreat and go back to the way it was.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That is the choice. I'm looking at your ad here, proven leadership for a better.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, excuse me, welcome back to the program. 870-275-9799. That is the telephone number. If you want to text us, you can sound off over at the Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Conduit News. Let's see here. We are doing some little candidate spotlights here as we highlight the importance of the 2018 midterm elections. You got to get out and vote. Welcome back to the program. Who do we have here? Is this State Representative Kim Hammer, who's got a big race today? Kim, good morning to you. Thanks for calling in, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for inviting me on the show this morning.
Absolutely. So you're state rep for District 28, but you're actually running to be the senator for the larger area. Which district is that?
33.
33. So I would assume that you are wanting people to get out and vote today.
I would appreciate very much they get up and vote, not only for myself, but we've got a lot of statewide races that are on the line. We need to have good representation in. So, I would just encourage people to get out and vote, to be actively involved, but also to respect those that paid the price so we can have the freedom to vote. That's the more important motivator, in my opinion.
Wow. Yeah. Very, very true. Very true. especially in the shadow of the SNL using our combat veterans as punchlines. Hey, let me ask you this. Have you ever seen the nation in your lifetime, Kim, so divided as it is?
I am 60 years old. I was young when going through the Vietnam era, although remember a little bit about it. That was a division that was created by a situation that was happening outside of our borders. But as far as the division that is created by what's happening inside of our borders in my lifetime, no. I think this is, I think that there's an obvious division that's occurring out there. I have my personal opinions as to why it's being created and why it's being caused. But my lifetime, this is the worst I've seen it.
Wow. Well, I know you're excited about serving the people of your district. I know you're excited about the work that you're going to do in the Arkansas Senate. And I just want to say, number one, thanks for running, and number two, I wish you the best of luck, sir, in your campaign for election here. And I know I think the people of your district are going to make the right choice. So,
well, I live by the theory of Romans 13:1, and that is the Lord already knows who's going to be elected. He's already appointed that person to that seat. Run hard, work hard, stay clean. Plan on staying clean too, for that matter. And if He blesses me to be in that seat, I'll be happy to be a servant to the people of my district.
All right, State Representative Kim Hammer, sir, we appreciate you coming on this morning. Good luck to you.
All right, thanks for the opportunity. Everybody go vote.
All right, everybody go vote, and that's what we want to convey today. I saw our whiteboard this morning says, and for the rest of the week, votes have consequences. Votes have consequences. And now I went ahead and I put in the square, you see there, vote. So I don't know. I'm not an artist. I'm trying my best, though. I'm trying my best. I saw this from CNS News. Now you have to say that specifically, CNS News. Okay? So over at CNS News, there is a Christian woman, headline, Christian woman acquitted of blasphemy, forced to remain in Pakistan as radicals demand her death. Interesting. We might have maybe some more international pressure, maybe put on another country to get another Christian out of a Middle Eastern country. That may be happening. You can bet the Trump administration is very much aware what's going on there. Hey, folks, welcome back to the program. We have the candidate for the Arkansas Supreme Court, David Sterling, is back with us. David, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. What's the feeling right now? I mean, I know it's early, but, hey, it's Election Day in America. It's exciting.
Well, it is very, very exciting. It's been a long campaign this whole year and everything, been out on the campaign trail just all over the state of Arkansas. I mean, I feel really good about it right now, but I also know that it ain't over until the last vote is counted. So I'm very cautiously optimistic right now, but I really, really appreciate all the voters of Arkansas being so receptive to my campaign message of judicial conservatism all year, and hopefully we'll bring it home tonight.
Well, I certainly know you've been out there working hard. One of your ads that I've listened to, it is interesting how in Arkansas we don't appoint justices, we vote for them. You make a point to say that in your ads. We vote for our justices here in Arkansas, and I think that's extremely important. I think it's powerful that we get to have a say who's going to sit on the high court in the land, and so people need to take this decision seriously. I'm sure you would agree.
Oh, I totally agree, and I totally support elected judges in the state. I mean, there's a lot of debate as to whether or not that's the best way to do it, but I think taking it to the voters themselves, presenting your message, your judicial philosophy, and letting them choose who they want on the state's highest court, I think that's very, very important.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. I want to remind everybody, we've had you on before, David, but one of the things that we talked about was, there are, to me, different judicial philosophies. And so while the Supreme Court race or judicial races here in the state are nonpartisan, there are different ways to look at, let's say, the Constitution, the state Constitution, the national Constitution. How would you describe your philosophy when it comes to that?
Well, I call it judicial conservatism, which is different from political conservatism. I mean, it has to do with your view of the Constitution and how it should be regarded in your decisions. For me, the Constitution is always at the center of everything. I'm an originalist. I'm a textualist. I believe in judicial restraint. I don't think that judges should be legislating from the bench. I should leave that to legislators and the people who elect them to their legislative positions. And, I don't think that my personal opinions on different political issues should really come into play at all. I think that it's really up to the people as far as the laws that the legislature has passed and the Constitution that the people have adopted in our state. And ultimately, at the end of the day, whether I agree with it or disagree with it, the Constitution is what's going to rule at the end of the day.
Yeah. I was actually having a conversation, David, the other day with a friend about conservative versus liberal theology. And I kind of think that, if you have a conservative theology from a Christian worldview, then you are more of a literal textualist when it comes to interpreting Scripture, right? So it is what it says versus maybe a more liberal theology might maybe add to or take away depending on, I don't know, the culture of the day. So I think that would also apply, and you can disagree if you'd like, but I think that would also apply to the way we need to apply our laws because, the Constitution, for example, is it's a document that's 200 plus years old, but it's still, those words still mean the same today that they meant back then.
Well, they do mean the same thing today. And for the people that do believe, I believe that the Constitution is a living and breathing document, but only to the extent that it has amendment provisions within it. So if you want to change the Constitution, you shouldn't do it through judicial fiat. You should do it instead through the amendment process, which is already built into the Constitution itself.
I think that's exactly right. All right, so what are your plans today, David Sterling? I know it's probably going to be a busy day for you. Heading to the polls, going to wave some signs?
I am definitely heading to the polls. My wife and I were waiting till Election Day to actually cast our ballot, so we got to make sure that we actually do that. And I encourage all your listeners out there, if they haven't voted yet, to get to the polls. And, yes, I'll be working the polls all day. I actually had a early morning interview this morning at 5 a.m. on the steps of the state capitol. So you can check my Facebook page and see pics from that event. But, it's going to be from 5 a.m. until, 7:30 tonight. And we're going to do a watch party tonight at the Embassy Suites in Little Rock over at the Athletic Club Grill inside the Embassy Suites in Little Rock. I encourage all your listeners, if they want to come out and celebrate with me, please do that. But, yeah, it's going to be between now and then, it's going to be, going all around central Arkansas is about as far as I can reach right now. Going to all the polling locations I can reach. Still, closing it out. Talking to as many voters as what I can between now and then. Outside the 100-foot boundary or whatever from the polling locations,
of course.
Keeping it all legal and everything. But just want to be out there and let people know that. I'm taking this all the way to the very end. I'm not going to slow down at all. I got my foot on the accelerator. I'm going to keep it on there until the very end, until the last vote is cast. So
all right.
I really appreciate all the support out there by your listeners and people in Arkansas.
David Sterling, Arkansas Supreme Court candidate. Best of luck to you, sir.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All righty. Man, I'm telling you, you do have to stay 100 feet away. You got to remember that. From these polling locations, got to stay 100 feet away. Now, not that necessarily matters sometimes. To some politicians, one time I caught there's a former state representative at a polling place that had his signs like literally right next to the door up here in this neck of the woods. He was a Democrat, of course. And then do you guys remember Hudson Hallam, the Democrat state representative that he got pinched for doing something illegal. He was I'm not kidding. You can look this up. He was promising vodka and fried chicken for an absentee voter scam. And this was in the West Memphis area, I believe. Former state representative Hudson Hallam was convicted on this. And if you go read the headlines, this is the Democrat Party, folks. If you go read the headlines on it, initially, I think when it first broke, he was essentially like, well, I thought this was how it was done. This is what people have always been doing to get these absentee votes. You hand out the vodka and the fried chicken, and then you get the absentee ballot, and you fill it out, and then you get a vote. That's the Democrat Party. Do what? He went to jail, I think, or some form of probation or something for it. Joe was like, well, where did he go? I was like, well, I know. Anyway. All right, so we're going to reset here. We're going to take a break. This is Conduit News Radio. It is exciting. It is Election Day, midterm Election Day 2018, and we're going to be back here in just a moment.
If you believe the Second Amendment protects your right to defend your home with a firearm, where do you turn if the government confiscates your gun? To the courthouse. The Founding Fathers created your Seventh Amendment right to a civil jury to protect your freedoms. The courthouse is where you fight the overreaching hand of government, and the Brad Hendricks Law Firm is where the fight starts. Call the Brad Hendricks Law Firm at 501-221-0444. The Brad Hendricks Law Firm in Little Rock, standing ready using the Seventh Amendment to protect your Second Amendment rights. Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
County. Again, we're talking with Joseph Wood, the county judge for Washington County. I mean, this guy, folks, has given the folks of Washington County results, produced $775,000 of revenue for the county by auctioning off dated equipment. That sounds like a good idea.
Absolutely, it was, and we did that in about 5 hours. Again, I come in and I'm not understanding why we have so much equipment and collecting dust and all. They said, well, it's been sitting here for a while now. We used to do auctions maybe 10, 15 years ago. I said, are you kidding me? Let's go ahead and assemble an auction. Let's get rid of some of this stuff. So there's some people who could use it. And we did. We had probably 3 or 4 different counties come in to buy some of that equipment because they didn't have to go out and buy brand new stuff. They could use it, and it cost them a whole lot less. It got it off our books. It brought some revenues into our road department. Again, just
order. In the name of public safety, order. This meeting of the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards is called to order in the name of public safety. What's on the agenda for the day?
We have before us today, per our summons, a representative from the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing cosmetology, cosmetologist, and all things hair care and beauty.
Right. Of course, I remember this. In the name of public safety, ma'am, please state your name for the record, and thank you for appearing before us today.
Yes, my name is Cosmo Glamour Gazette, and I'm here in response to a letter our state board received claiming we're in violation of the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards. In the letter, you claim that our licensing board is in violation of your rules and regulations because we have failed to, quote, pay tribute, end quote, and therefore have not been granted a license by the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing licensing boards to, quote, shake down the Arkansans who have an interest in cosmetology, end quote.
In the name of public safety, order. Yes, Miss Gazette, we sent you that letter because you have not obtained our approval in the form of a license from our board to distribute licenses to the professional class your board strives to protect. In the name of public safety, of course.
Of course.
So, in the name of public safety, and just so we can get this for the record, you do admit and agree with our board, the Arkansas State Licensing Board, governing state licensing boards, that you have not obtained a license, thereby revealing your board of cosmetology to be operating outside our rules, regulations, and authority?
Well, sir, I'm not sure our board agrees that we need a license from your board to continue to shake down, to look out for the public safety of Arkansans.
In the name of public safety.
In the name of public safety.
Well, it seems we are at a bit of an impasse if we are not in agreement that your board owes us tribute.
Sir, maybe we could ask and see if there's a bureaucrat in the house.
Oh, yes. Yes, that would shed some light on things. A bureaucrat. Yeah, in the name of public safety, is there a bureaucrat in the house? We need someone to resuscitate and confirm our authority as the Arkansas State Licensing Board, governing state licensing boards.
Here.
Ah, yes. Oh, good. Come to the end of the table in the name of public safety and state your name for the record, please.
Yes, I am Despot Ringleader, the head of the bureau governing all state bureaus, and it is my testimony the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards does have the authority to demand tribute in this situation and will provide in exchange a license to say they can continue to operate in the name of public safety.
It's hard to argue when the public safety is put at risk. Very well. We will consider Mrs. Ringleader's testimony as truth, and we will pay tribute in the name of public safety, of course.
In the name of public safety.
In the name of public safety.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
It's coming up at the top of the hour. Coming up at the top of the hour, we're going to check in with a bunch of guests. Joe, will you read me the guest list? That's all. All right. State Representative Jim Dotson, Mark Lowry, Dr. Michael Pacco, and Senator-elect Mark Johnson. And then we're going to be listening to the interview with Larry Schweikert at 7:33, and then we're going to be talking with Congressman French Hill. So we've got a jam-packed rest of the show, so stay tuned, okay? What are the key districts? What are the key states to be watching for nationally in this election? Over at Zero Hedge, they've got an article. With the seemingly interminable campaigning for the midterms, which began shortly after President Trump's inauguration, finally behind us, investors are watching with bated breath as Americans head to the polls for a midterm vote that's expected to bring out the highest vote tallies of an off-year election in recent memory. I have a friend of mine that has an annuity that's coming due, like for the rest of his life. I think it's coming due like a couple days after today. Like, I don't know, next week sometime. And he wants the Republicans to hold the House so bad. Because he thinks the stock market's going to completely tank if the Democrats win. I mean, a lot of people are thinking this. So here's from Bloomberg. They're writing, it's possible that control of Congress is settled before midnight, but the unusually large number of close contests, many in states known for slow ballot counting, means the first midterm of Donald Trump's presidency could go into overtime. The basic reality is this. Using Cook Political Report ratings, there are 8 competitive Senate races for seats. All right, let's look into some of this. Indiana, Joe Donnelly, the Democrat, versus Mike Braun. Democrat Joe Donnelly is trying to fend off Republican Mike Braun in a state that Trump won by 19%. Arizona, Kristen Sinema versus Martha McSally. Democrats have high hopes for flipping this seat, where Representative Kristen Sinema is running against Republican Representative Martha McSally for the seat left open when Jeff Flake, a sharp critic of Trump, opted to retire. McSally's a former Air Force pilot who represents a moderate district base in Tucson. Florida, Bill Nelson, Democrat versus Rick Scott, Republican. Incumbent Democratic Senator Bill Nelson is defending his seat against Republican Rick Scott, the current governor. Then you look at the House. Virginia's 7th Congressional District. This will be some of these East Coast races. Also, you have Kentucky's 6th, Florida's 27th. Then you've got the gubernatorial race in Florida. Georgia, you've got the gubernatorial race there. And look, I guess nationally, you've got Kansas as well. Secretary of State Chris Kobach trying to get the governor's seat over in Kansas. So what should we do? Well, our friend who we interviewed yesterday, going to play him again coming up at 7:33, Larry Schweikert. He wrote an article over at the Free Beacon, or I'm sorry, at Free Public, or thefreerepublic.com. And he writes this today. Whatever happens, please do not be goaded into hysteria by Drudge or any sources, including himself, saying this is happening or that is happening, or above all, exit polls show. Let me remind some of you, Freepers, about Election Day 2004. Everything came down to Ohio. If George W. Bush won Ohio, he won the election. If Lurch, John Kerry, won it, he would win. I was working for the Bush campaign in Dayton, Ohio, he says, as a poll flusher. Perhaps now technology has mitigated this, but at the time, teams would fan out to key polling places at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. and see how many of your party in that precinct had voted already. Then they'd send out walkers or make calls to get those turned out who hadn't already voted. It just so happened that my precinct was one of the key bellwether precincts in all of Ohio. However, the precinct I was flushing went Ohio. And so went the election. It's one of those that the networks used to call a state with only 1% of the vote in, right? So 10 o'clock was normal, maybe high for Republicans. But I got home, saw Drudge headlines screaming about exit polls, how Bush was losing badly. Well, I hadn't seen that. So I'm sorry, one second, folks. Looks like we only have, go ahead, put them in. Go ahead and put them in. Real quick, we only have like 2 minutes. Here's State Representative Marcus Richmond. Go ahead and put him in, Joe. Go ahead and put him in. State Representative Marcus Richmond, sir, welcome to the program. We only got about 2 minutes. I know you want to tell everybody to get out and vote.
Yeah, Paul, I certainly am, and they need to get out and vote. You know, you hear, when you think about it and you hear people talk and stuff, sometimes I don't think they realize just how many men and women have sacrificed, and some of them sacrificed everything in order to give us the opportunity to go and vote and choose our path. And if you really want to honor those people that, coming here on November 11th, Veterans Day, if you truly want to honor those folks, then take the time to vote today.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to do it.
And you, as a Marine, sir, you have every right to say that, and I just want to publicly thank you for your service this morning.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everything that you and your guys do to keep the public informed.
Thank you for that. State Representative Marcus Richmond, good luck in your re-election, sir. I know you're going to be celebrating tonight, and we're all the whole state's going to be celebrating. So we appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Okay, take care of yourself and stay safe.
All righty. State Representative Marcus Richmond, everybody, Majority Leader in the House down in Little Rock. All right, that's all the time we have for the first hour. We've got one more hour coming your way next. Back in just a moment.
Talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 1230 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Commonsensical, good decision-making, and obviously an improvement to our budget.
And you also try to keep in contact with the mayors in the county, right, to see what their needs are?
Absolutely. When I was running 2 years ago, the thing I heard mostly was, please don't be the county judge of just Fayetteville. And I didn't understand what they were talking about. They said we've had decades where the county judge's sole focus has been on Fayetteville, and clearly Washington County is far bigger than just Fayetteville. 225,000 people in the county and probably 25-plus towns, townships, and cities. So I said, well, let's do this. I get in office. I want to have a meeting. I want to bring all you guys into my office. And I did. February, the month after I got sworn in, brought all the mayors in the county in and said, okay, can we do a breakfast once a quarter? And they were so surprised that I did what I said. They said, well, can we do it every month? And so every month I said, but this will be the last meeting in my office. We will rotate it all around the county, starting with Elkins and just work our way all the way down till we get down to, Farmington, Springdale, et cetera. And so every month, and it takes almost 2 years to get through all the counties.
Wow.
It's only 12 months. And so every month we go to everybody's city or town. They get a chance to bring some donuts and coffee, showcase their particular city or town. But more than that, Mr. Harrell, is the fact that they get a chance to parlay different ideas and thoughts. One may say, hey, I'm about to go buy a new grader. Somebody else says, well, don't buy one. I got one I'm about to sell. And so they can start sharing thoughts and ideas. Hey, I need a bridge inspecting machine or truck. Well, don't buy one because now I have one. You outsource it to me. We'll go ahead and for your man hours and a dollar rate, we can do that for you. And you don't have to have your citizens, taxpayers in your cities buy new equipment when we have it already. So it allows us to spend once a month just kind of spending a little time having coffee and fellowshipping, but more or less really talking about the business going on in their cities and how we can support one another.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That seems like a just common sense thing that you would want to do. Yeah. We're talking once again with the Washington County Judge, Joseph Wood. He's a Republican. He's cut, spending in his county by $1 million. It's conservative leadership, and the election is tomorrow. And I know you want another term. Last question, just nationally or generally, the mood of not just Washington County or the state of Arkansas, but the country in general. What are your thoughts? What do you hope to see going forward politically?
Well, I do think, and I think we have heard a little bit from Congressman Crawford and Barth before. I do believe that the blue wave is not going to be blue wave; it's going to be red. And I do think that we're going to see a different come Wednesday. The excitement of again what our leadership across the country and our governors and senators, they're going to be excited about what is happening, what happens on Tuesday evening. That yes, the country is saying no more of the open the doors, anyone, everyone. The government can take care of all your wishes and whims. That no, there will be jobs, there will be vitality because people are excited about the fact that they do have an economic surge in their cities, counties, and in their states. They will see the focus on guarding our state, our nation's borders. I think they'll see the fact that there's a focus on America and driving the engine of being the global icon that we are. We always talk about this light on the hill. And I think that the country will again see, yes, we are the beacon of hope and inspiration. The reason why we have this immigration going on right now, this landslide that, 10, 12,000 people coming over here, again, no matter what, and right or wrong, they still believe that this is a beacon of hope for them, and they can't get it in their own country. Now, I would ask a question. If you can rally and pull that many people together to come and change our government, why couldn't they turn around and go to their own government and change that? If you can put that kind of energy and focus. But again, they don't believe they can have anything like that in their country, and that's why we're here. We have a lot of work to do to keep this country, the sovereign nation that it is, a beacon of hope around the world.
Republican Joseph Wood, Washington County Judge, best of hope in your reelection, sir. It's been a pleasure to have you on, and I'd love to do it again soon. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All
Absolutely.
right.
You take care of yourself.
Okay.
All right, Paul.
Thank you. Joseph Wood, everybody.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
You know, I'm convinced more than ever. I really am. I'm convinced more than ever that today should be a national holiday, but there should be no early voting. And I mean, if that were the case, I'd be smoking a brisket right now over a pecan fire. That's what I'd be doing, folks. It's Election Day, and the polls open at 7:30 today, and they close at 7:30. Welcome back to the program. We've got State Representative Jim Dotson is with us. Jim, good morning to you.
Good morning.
So I wanted to have you on, give you an opportunity, really just to address the state. We got to get out there and vote, don't we?
Yep. Go vote. That's the message.
It's as simple as that. If we and you've heard that before. If you don't vote, then you don't really have a right to complain. And I tend to agree with that. I mean, go out, have your say, and of course, nationally, the midterms are certainly important.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it matters if somebody votes or not. They'll still complain. However, you didn't really voice your opinion when it actually mattered. So, Bottom line, it all comes down to today. Go vote. You got about 12 hours and 23 minutes if anybody's counting. I know I certainly am, but it's a cold, brisk morning. It's a great time to go out there and get in line and start voting. If you procrastinate until the last day, and you got 12 hours, if you procrastinate till the last minute.
Are you heading that way now? Are you working the polls at all?
Oh, I'm outside and trying to keep my fingers warm right now.
Yeah.
Smiling and waving at people.
Wait, would you agree that right now in America, when it comes to the choices that people have, they certainly have two completely different directions? I mean, you can move the country one way or the other.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think as far as what is being offered out there, at least on a national sense, is the opportunity to continue some of the fantastic growth that we've seen in the last 18 to 24 months.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the policies that we've actually started to see take effect and move our country forward in a fantastic way. Arkansas has certainly seen over the last several years an emergence, if you will, of jobs, wage increases, unemployment dropping like crazy, and good economic policies that get people, allow people the opportunity to keep government out of the way, and allow the private sector to really take off and go forward without those government hindrances and roadblocks is critical to an economic future. And of course, that's not to mention a culture of life that has been created. Arkansas is now the second most pro-life state in the nation.
Yes.
And that's not by accident.
Yes.
That's because of intentionally moving forward with pro-life policies, pro-growth policies as far as the state's concerned. And here in Arkansas, we have the opportunity. I mean, we can't do a whole lot about the national stuff. And really, as far as presidential elections and things like that, that's still 2 years away. But as far as locally, every single race does count. And in the last election in May, there were a couple of races decided in Northwest Arkansas, one by 3 votes and one by 12 votes.
I saw that.
If anybody thinks their vote doesn't count, I mean, the one that was decided by 3 votes, if a husband and wife had decided in their household to pick the other candidate, it would have been a different outcome.
Yeah.
So you have to get out and go vote. And not to say you can't complain, because we all have the right to complain.
Yes.
But as far as this is the chance you have to make your voice matter and make your vote count. And none of us want to wake up tomorrow morning saying that we didn't do everything we could to make sure Arkansas continues to go forward in a positive direction.
Absolutely. Jim Dotson, State Representative, District 93, at the polls. Hey, stay warm, okay? It is brisk, like you said.
Will do.
Okay.
Hey, thank you.
All right.
Talk to
Thank
you. Bye-bye.
All right, Jim Dotson, everybody. We appreciate him calling in on this day. So we were talking last hour briefly about these exit polls situation. That's what you're going to hear. Exit polls. The exit polls don't pay any attention. We were reading Larry Schweikert's article about how back in 2004, he was doing polling for the George W. Bush campaign, and how they said the exit polls were looking bad for Bush, and he had, was just getting hammered on, and he was going to lose. And he was like, that's just not the case. So when you hear, it's going to happen, sometime in the afternoon, exit polls, whether it's good or bad. The exit polls, folks, they said that Trump had lost. They said that Trump had gotten creamed, in the exit polls. And that wasn't the case at all. So, anyway, we have with us, who do we have now, Joe? We have State Representative Mark Lowry calling in on this election day.
Radio interview.
Mark, how you doing, sir?
Well, I'm fine, Paul. I'm doing the more unglamorous parts of being a politician, and that's out putting up signs and organizing workers. But it's an exciting day.
Putting up signs and organizing workers. That's good. And I know everybody's doing that. I mean, and it's a busy morning. Are you staying warm out there this morning?
Well, it's foggy. I was just telling one worker that doesn't have a sign yet that I'm on my way, but it may not matter for a while because it's so foggy they may not be able to see them anyway.
So talk about, number one, Mark Lowry, the importance of voting, obviously. And do you agree? I mean, almost never before in this country, there are 2 clear directions. People can vote one way or another way, but they're pretty. Our country's pretty divided right now.
Well, absolutely they are, and they're divided on some critical issues, especially in Arkansas. Your Republicans believe that the people of Arkansas know best how to spend their money, and so we are looking for every opportunity we can to streamline government and to be able to save money so that we can get it back to the taxpayers through tax cuts. And of course, also issues on education. We feel like the parents are the best arbiters and deciders of what is best for their children. So that's why we also support school choice. And then also we believe that life is precious and that we should protect it. And so that's a clear separation as far as the issue of supporting pro-life, which I'm honored to have the endorsement of Arkansas Right to Life. My opponent has accepted money from Planned Parenthood. So It's a very clear contrast.
Yeah, very clear. Democrat versus Republican. Everyone's fitting in the traditional boxes. In Arkansas, we were just talking to Jim Dotson. We're like the number 2 pro-life state in the country right now.
That's exactly right, and that didn't happen overnight. I've actually, in a previous life in politics, was state director of Christian Coalition back in the early '90s, and worked with Jerry Cox and Larry Page on pro-life, pro-family issues, and believe me, we love the way things are today. But like I said, it didn't happen overnight, and it certainly didn't happen without the voters of Arkansas saying that they want conservative leadership, both in Little Rock and also in Washington.
Last question. I just want to make sure everybody knows District 39. Where is it? So if you have any people, constituents that are listening right now, they know they need to go vote for you, Mark.
Well, absolutely. District 39 is primarily the Maumelle area, but it also takes in great communities of Oak Grove, Marche, Morgan, and also extends down into the Amboy area of North Little Rock, where I am right now. And I've got one of my great supporters standing out here on Military Drive that goes into Camp Robinson, waving a sign for me.
All right. There we go. Mark Lowry, State Representative. Best of luck to you in your reelection, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to your listeners.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Good luck, folks. Today we've got kind of jam-packed, trying to get it to as many people as we can. Just kind of giving you an overall picture of the excitement this morning. Again, polls are going to be opening in about 15 minutes across the state. They're going to remain open for 12 hours. So you're going to be able to vote at 7:30, and the polls are going to close at 7:30 tonight. So make sure that you take advantage of this if you haven't already, right? I know veterans, combat veterans, as of late, have been used for, punchlines. But if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have the right to vote and exercise that right today. Joe, who do we have next in the tank? All right, welcome back to the program. We have the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Arkansas, Dr. Michael Packo, is with us. Michael, welcome back to the show.
Good morning again.
I wanted to have your Republican and Democrat counterparts on as well, but I failed. I wasn't able. Well, let's just say they declined to come on the program. But I wanted to talk to you specifically, real quick, as a libertarian, as the chair of the Libertarian Party of Arkansas. What does victory look like for libertarians in Arkansas this election day?
Well, I suppose first off, I should say that we are a political party, and so we'd like to see our candidates elected to office. That said, the poll numbers and the limited resources that our candidates have had to campaign means that that's perhaps something that we'll see in 2020 or 22. But what we'd like to see is our vote totals continue to rise. This is the fourth election cycle that libertarians have been on the ballot in Arkansas, and our votes have increased every time. Many of our candidates are out there raising awareness, letting the public know that there is a third choice, the Libertarian Party, and we hope to see our vote totals rise beyond what they were in the last electoral cycle.
Now, there's a big hurdle that could be achieved this cycle, right? And that has to do with ballot access. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. There's one race that matters when it comes to continued ballot access to the Libertarian Party, and that's the governor's race. Our candidate, Mark West, should he secure 3% of the vote, the Libertarian Party would be a recognized political party in Arkansas, and we would not have to go through the expense and difficulty of petitioning to get on the ballot for the next election. So we could hit the ground running and start preparing our candidates for the next election. So, that's a very important obstacle for us to achieve. Often in the top of the ticket races, people are convinced that if they don't vote for one or the other, the bad one will win. In this case, I think it's pretty clear from the polls that the incumbent is going to prevail. Yeah. So that a vote for our candidate, Mark West, is a vote for continued choice in Arkansas elections.
So if he gets 3% or higher, the Libertarian Party will have ballot access from the top of the ticket all the way down. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. We would. It all depends on that one race. It's kind of a crazy system, if you ask me. But
wow.
So we have 32 candidates. We could have 31 of them elected to office, and we still wouldn't be a political party if Mark West didn't get that 3%. That's the way it works.
Wow. Well, I would say, just from the idea of getting away from a two-party system, if that's the goal, and that is the goal of the Libertarians, obviously, then that would be a victory. To get that 3%, that would certainly be a victory for you guys.
Well, I'll tell you, if that occurs, I'm really strongly expecting that it will, then I think our election night watch party will be a joyous event this evening.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Michael Packo, we really appreciate you coming on the program, and best of luck to your party, and we really just thank you for spending time with us this morning.
Well, thanks for calling me.
All righty. Okay. We'll talk to you again soon. And Dr. Michael Packo, he's also, an economist. We had him on to talk about the Arkansas numbers last week, and maybe we'll get him on next month when we get those new numbers coming out. We're going to take a break, reset, going to be back with the senator-elect for District 15, Mark Johnson, who I understand is on the way to the polls right now. Polls open in 10 minutes, folks. Don't go anywhere.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us, first of all. I want to welcome to the program. We have Mr. Joseph Wood is on the line. He is the county judge for the Washington County up in northwest Arkansas. Joseph, welcome to the program, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Harrell. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. So, first,
good morning to your audience.
Do what now?
I said good morning to your audience.
Yes, absolutely. They're probably on their first sip of coffee. And of course, I'm way ahead of them at this point.
I'm halfway through mine. So.
Okay, good. Well, so tell us a little bit about what's it like being the Washington County judge.
Pretty incredible experience. The past couple of years have been obviously.
Let's face it, times are tough for the Arkansas General Assembly. They're all waiting for the spotlight exposing public corruption to end, so they won't be under so much scrutiny. And during this time, what if you're a legislator and you need money? What if you're slapped with a huge expense? What if your check for consultant services is late this month? Or maybe you just need extra cash now until payday. When that happens, you can't wait. Hi, I'm Bobby Blackmail for the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank, your trusted source to over 135 lenders to get you short-term cash fast. Use the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank today, and you can have up to $12,500 cash in your checking account tomorrow. Dried-up bribes no longer coming from Medicaid entities? Handled. Extra cash until your hopeful acquittal? Done. And you'll be surprised at how easy it is to get extra cash. Just be an elected official and be comfortable with the status quo, and we'll connect you with a fellow legislator who is ready to loan. It's quick and easy. And don't worry if you can't make the payments, because the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank is designed to help you get through these tough economic times. There are other ways you can pay off your debt, like by voting the way the establishment wants, or by rewarding some with committee chairmanships. So forget about overdraft fees and the spirit of covetousness that sometimes overwhelms the best of lawmakers. Just remember, the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank for short-term cash between colleagues when you need it fast.
Some transactions have long-term consequences.
Paul Harrell, parody.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
I got a question. Is Senate District 15 so conservative that the Democrats don't even field a candidate? We got Mark Johnson with us. Mark, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, and as you said, I don't have an opponent this fall, so I'm looking forward to being senator-elect tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. People are going and voting. We're talking, by the way, folks, with, I'll go ahead and say, Senator-elect Mark Johnson for District 15. Now, what's the feeling right now? I understand. I know you're going to be going to the polls, or are you already at the polls? Or?
Well, I'm on my way, Paul. I'm going to be helping our candidates, our House candidates in my district. First, Representative Mark Lowry, who's in District 39. That's Maumelle and part of North Little Rock. And I'm going to be helping Mark this morning. I also, last night, was up with Representative Rick Beck in Morrison, Conway County, and part of Perry County. And another candidate I encourage all my friends that haven't already voted for to do it is Representative Mary Bentley, who's in the southern part of Perry County and goes all the way over to, I think, to Yale County. But
yes,
they're all in my district, and my good friends and people who I'm really looking forward to working with for our area.
Your district is huge.
It's 68 miles long. 78 miles long.
That's a giant piece of land there.
Yes, it is. There's a long story about it, Paul. You don't have time to hear it, but sometime maybe when I'm on your show, we could talk about it. Just for do a gerrymandering.
Yes.
You could do a whole show about it. I could tell you some great stories, which are mostly kind of humorous.
Well, yeah, I would love to do that. I love the history of how things get the way they are. There's always a lot of it really comes down to making the sausage, I guess.
It absolutely is.
Mark, the country is divided. There are clearly two directions. People can choose one direction or another direction. I don't know if it's ever been this stark of a contrast, but I'm only 34 years old, so correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I've never seen it in this manner and with the shrill attitude. And frankly, there's even a little bit of it on our side because a lot of good folks on our side are reacting to the shall we say, provocativeness of the left. When people have lost all civility, then you're going to see some of the things that happen, and there's going to be a reaction to it. I think the country's falling into three categories. There's a third one. There are good conservative people that are pragmatic, and they see the job that President Trump is doing in the direction of following a real philosophy and not just giving lip service to it, and even in many cases, being a little belligerent about it. And his style, if you want to call it that, is not the style that I would normally choose. But the fact is that the left is not used to someone that if they punch him, turns around and punches them back. And then there are people on our side that, like myself, who did not originally count myself as a supporter of President Trump. Actually, my wife was from day one, but
the woman behind the man, everybody, the woman behind the man.
That's right, exactly. And people know my wife, know that she's strong, and she just saw him as someone who could make the real changes. And of course, as usual, she turned out to be correct. But in this case, there are also people like me, and maybe even you to some extent, maybe voted for a different candidate in the primary,
yes,
but were at least pleasantly surprised, if not overwhelmingly thrilled at the job that President Trump has done. But then there's this group, and then of course there's the left, and they're moving further over. Who would have ever thought that calling yourself a socialist would help you almost get elected president like Bernie Sanders? But that's the world we're in now. But there's this group, and I just call them the never-Trumpers, but most of them are conservatives who just either cannot handle the president's personality, which, let's face it, he's a New Yorker, he's a little different, and those that maybe differ with him on some minor things, and their visceral hatred is almost as bad as that of those on the far left.
I agree.
And so that's kind of how I see it breaking down. But that center group, some of those people are my friends, and you've watched them morph into, okay, gosh, maybe I was wrong. Nationally, Eric Erickson is one who has actually done a mea culpa and said, I was wrong. Mm-hmm. He's done a good job. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a lot of the nation is coming to that. They're seeing the measurable results, and they're saying, this real conservative thing actually is working. Yeah. So as you and I know it always would and always does.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. We're about out of time, but I really like how you used the word pragmatic, because in the past it has been used to actually compromise and just give lip service to these popular ideas with the Republican voter. But you have somebody like Donald Trump who is definitely pragmatic, but he's not wavering from what he's trying to get done, which is what he was elected to do. And that's the difference. I mean, he really is working for the American people, and not Washington. Mark Johnson, I'll give you the last word. People got to get out and vote.
Absolutely, Paul. This is a critical election, and especially in our 2nd district, please go out and vote for Congressman French Hill. It might be the most important vote. It's the linchpin in keeping Nancy Pelosi out of the Speaker's office.
Very well said. Mark Johnson, Senator-elect District 15. We appreciate it, sir. Be safe at the polls.
Thanks, Paul.
Folks, the polls open in 20 seconds. The polls open in 20 seconds. We're going to be back with the interview with Mr. Larry Schweikert, and then Congressman French Hill will join us for a short interview as we get closer to the top of the hour. Back in a minute.
With a lot of focus. We came in with a focus on building better leadership in the county, you get better leaders that make better decisions, you get better services, you get a better county. And so undoing some of the things that have been going on over the past few decades, they haven't had a Republican county judge in Washington County in nearly 40 years. So here I come in and I see things differently. And so we go in and start looking at vision, executing on those visions, and really start to turn the dime on a lot of areas.
I see here that the budget has been reduced by almost $1 million while at the same time maintaining county services. Tell us about that. Did you get any pushback on that?
A ton of pushback. When we got in office, we got a $65 million budget. Now it's almost 68, but it's about half of that is the sheriff's budget, half is mine, the county judge. I have 15 directors. I started walking through strategically each department head's budget, starting with A, animal shelters, all the way to B, veterans. $1 million almost animal shelter budget, and it just caught me by surprise that we would have that much spent on an animal shelter. I wanted to see it. It's beautiful. We got great leadership there. But when I got all the way down to the road department, then next to the veterans department, the veterans had a $100,000 budget. Surprised me. So we started to say, okay, how can we be smart about running the animal shelter to really begin to support and do things for our veterans? So we began to strategically, we outsource some of our veterinarian services. So now when there's an animal that's ill or sick, we take it to the veterinarian. We know how much it's going to cost us versus having a veterinarian on staff. And we may have 2 or 3 weeks go where there's no surgeries, and we're still paying the types of benefits and dollars. So we went through, and when we finished going through all of their various budgets, we reduced it by $1 million, which is unheard of in county government across the state, let alone here in Washington County.
It is absolutely, you're absolutely right. It is unheard of. But I want to kind of back up for a second. So you had you said $1 million. Was it $1 million on animal?
Right at $1 million for the animal shelter budget.
I just think that's incredible. And then we're not spending that on veterans. I mean, I love animals.
Oh, nowhere near it.
And I want to be, I want to take care of animals and everything else. But I mean, people are more important, especially our veterans. They're more important than animals.
Absolutely. Because I said that you can take care of every animal in this shelter, and they will never go out and pick up a veteran and take care of a veteran. But you can take care of every veteran in our Washington County area, and they can go and take every animal out of the animal shelter, adopt them, take care of them, et cetera. So I just, again, common sense, we love animals, but I put a little higher priority on our people, especially our veterans.
So you've cut, like you said, unheard of, reduced the government by $1 million. That's fantastic. And I don't think it's a surprise that with that kind of conservative leadership, we're talking with...
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome to this midterm election by the numbers. It's a special broadcast, and I want to bring in, he's an author, he's a historian. His name is Larry Schweikert, and he joins us now via the phone. Larry, welcome to Conduit News Radio.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here.
I have been following you on Twitter for a while about the early voting numbers, and I find them fascinating, number one, because you don't see this talked about anywhere else in the mainstream media, and yet you're out there essentially saying, and you've been saying since July, that you think that the Republicans will hold the House and make gains in the Senate. Tell us about that.
Well, let's understand what early voting numbers are compared to polls. A poll is a sample that's pre-decided by some pollster as to who he's going to talk to, of opinions of people about what they may do at some future point. That's like 3 levels of tangentiality, okay? A vote, absentee or early, is a record of what people have already done in the past that you can count. Now, you say, well, you can't count who they voted for. That's correct. But you can in many states, certainly not all, and this will be an issue in a couple of states, but you can count in many states whether they're Republican or Democrat ballots. And based on that and the kind of running assumption by almost everybody in the industry that party identifier is the single biggest factor indicating how somebody's going to vote, you can pretty well assume that the same percentage of Democrats and Republicans who turn in ballots are going to vote for Democrats and Republicans. So you can you can arrive at a pretty solid number of who's voting and for whom. You say, well, we don't know how Indies are voting. That's correct, and I never include Indies in my analysis because, figuring them out is one of the keys of polling, and so far none of the pollsters have really done it very well. So just looking at the Republican and Democrat ballots at places like Florida, Arizona, Nevada, we can get a pretty good idea of where the election is headed. So let's just take Arizona. In Arizona, so far, we have over 116,000 Republican ballots over Democrat ballots. That is, Republicans have 116,000 lead. By Election Day in Arizona, 80% of all voters will have voted. Let that number sink in. 80% of voters in Arizona will have voted before the election. And so when you go into the election with a lead of 116,000, there just are not enough independents out there to flip a race. Richard Barris, the pollster, estimated that it would take independents breaking for Kristen Sinema somewhere over 72% to flip the race. So I think the race in Arizona is already over, and I think Nick Sally has already won.
Wow.
In a place like Florida, for example, Democrats came out of early voting with a 28,000 lead. Ooh, people, oh my gosh, they have a lead. Well, yeah, but in 2016, they had a lead of almost 100,000 coming out of early voting, meaning that they are way about 60,000 votes behind where they were in 2016 when Trump carried the state by 113,000 votes. So that gives you some idea of where you think the final vote will end up. I think it'll end up with the Republicans about 150 to 200,000 votes ahead.
So where does it stand right now? I understand that did the Democrats take the early vote lead?
Yes.
Basically in Florida.
They always do.
Right.
They always come back. Republicans lead in what's called mail-in, vote by mail, or absentee voting. And then the Democrats come back, and in the final 2 weekends, they do what's called souls to the polls, where they get all the churchgoers in black neighborhoods to go vote after church. And they always take the lead, but the point is they usually have a huge lead after this, and this time they have a very small lead.
And so then the question really is, I mean, if everything holds the way it normally does, Republicans in Florida, they typically outperform the Democrats on Election Day, correct?
That's correct. Same in Ohio, same in Arizona.
Wow. So we could be looking at a repeat of 2016 all over again.
No, I think so, without question. I mean, I think I've had the Republicans pegged as winning between 4 and 7 net Senate seat gains since early summer, and the only thing that's changed, in my opinion, is maybe we need to up that by 1 or 2. It now appears that Huggy Bear Hugan up in New Jersey is going to come away with a victory. It's going to be real close, but he's up now.
Wow.
At least that's what I'm hearing. Same thing. I'm not going to say the other one. There's another Senate race out there that the Republican is actually ahead that no one has caught yet. So, I think it'd be very easy to see Republicans gain a net 6 to 8 Senate seats.
I was reading your thread. By the way, we're talking, folks, with Larry Schweikart. He is the author of a great book that I've had for a long time, A Patriot's History of the United States. Many of you know it's that big, thick blue book that's many of you out there have, and it's a New York Times, #1 bestseller. And so I really appreciate you spending time with us this morning, Larry, and we're going to re-air this interview tomorrow morning on our terrestrial stations. I was reading your thread on Twitter, and it talked about how we should know kind of the way things are going to go tomorrow night or Tuesday night based on some of these East Coast races. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, basically, you can tell how things are going by how early the liberal media will try to pump out Democrat victories. For example, if Kemp lost the governor's race in Georgia, or it appeared he was going to lose that, they would call that race with 0.1% counted. I mean, they would literally call it that quickly. So if you're going past 1 or 2 hours past when the polls close, you can probably assume in whatever race it is that the Republican is winning. Doesn't always work out. We saw in Virginia, for example, in 2016, that went way down to the wire, and Trump was ahead right until the last minute when a lot of the Northern Virginia counties came in. But for the most part, if, for example, they haven't called the House races for the Democrat in Florida 26, Florida 27, Virginia 10, all of the New York districts, all of the New Jersey districts, and all the Pennsylvania districts. I mean, literally, the Democrats have to win almost all of those to win the House. Now, if they haven't called almost all of those, you can be assured it's going to be a long night, and that probably the Democrats are going to lose the House, because as you get further west, except for California, there aren't too many seats for them to get.
Yeah.
California, however, is looking very good in the early and absentee voting. Once again, the Republicans are outperforming where they need to be, with two exceptions. And I said we could lose 2 seats in California. I think the max will lose is 1.
Really? So you think? You think all of this hype, with the mainstream media saying, California is going to be the, maybe the apex of the blue wave. You don't see it happening that way.
No, all of the early voting and absentee we're seeing from all of the contested races out there, Republicans are leading all of them. The only question is, are they leading by enough to sustain, for example, a major turn by independents? And they are leading by more than enough in all but 2 of the races. And in those 2, the candidates have a pretty good record of flipping independents. So I don't think California's an issue. One other thing to think about in California is that for a change, they have a contested governor's race. John Cox out there probably won't win, but he is sending a lot of people to the polls, and a lot of Republicans who would not otherwise vote because, what's the use, are going to show up to vote for Cox, and in the process they will vote for other Republicans down ticket.
We're talking again with Larry Schweikert. He is the author of the book, several books, but Patriots History of the United States, and there's the modern-day version as well. On your thread this morning, Larry, it talked about how you had a note from a friend about how there's not much talk of the election among the youths, if you will, the youth on social media. Now, the millennials were supposed to be a big part of this supposed blue wave. What are you hearing?
Yeah, this is a friend who's plugged in to that generation, and he pays a great deal of attention to social media. And he said, what struck me is that there's no discussion of this election on social media at all among these people, indicating that there's not a lot of excitement there. And that's showing up in the early vote numbers. Again, we're not seeing big turnout by the youths, to quote my cousin Vinny. They just aren't turning out in any large numbers, and so that pretty well bodes well for Republicans. Here's one little stat that'll shock you. In Arizona early voting, the average age was 60.
Wow. Well, those are going to be tend to be more conservative voters, you would think. Of course,
you would think.
Yeah. Man, this is just fascinating stuff. So let me ask you this, Larry, and I've been following again your tweets for a while. These early voting numbers, you're not getting this. This is really alternative news. I mean, it really is to the fake news media. But one of the things that I've been saying for a while is the reason the left has seen red since 2016 is because of the mainstream media lying to them, telling them that Hillary Clinton was a shoo-in for 18 months, and then when that didn't happen, their little security blanket fell apart, and they've done nothing but just really go more and more radical on us. And looks like we may be – now, I know we don't know what's going to happen, but it looks like, if the Republicans hold the House and then they make gains in the Senate, I kind of feel like it's a signal of more unrest, not less, at least from the left's point of view. I think they're going to surprise us with how radical they'll become. What do you think?
Well, that's a very distinct possibility. There's obviously 2 ways they can go. They can reassess and go, gee, maybe this crazy message is not selling to ordinary Americans. Maybe we need to reassess. That's what Bill Clinton did with the Democrat study group in the 1980s after their huge loss to the caucus. They said, we need to reconnect with middle America. And, of course, Clinton did that very, very well. Will they do that? The likelihood is probably not. But again, we'll have to wait and see if the adults in that party take charge of it or not.
As a historian, have you ever seen the country at the place that it's in, or can you observe a portion of our past where we're so divided?
Well, you mean besides 1861?
Yeah, besides the Civil War, Larry.
People ask this all the time. You do realize that at one point in the country, 13 states were so disturbed about an election that they literally left the Union and raised armies.
Wow. So we seem to be, and that's kind of bone chilling. That should chill everybody out there. We have this caravan. We have
can I speak to that for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
I was talking with pollster Richard Barris, who was the most accurate pollster in 2016. He got Hillary's number right, but he also had Trump winning the electoral vote, the only one to do that. And he was saying in his polling of various California and other Arizona and other races that about 2 weeks ago the Democrats were ahead in the independents. Now, that didn't mean they were winning the races, because in some cases, like I said with Sinema, they'd have to be ahead a lot. But it did mean that they were ahead with the independents. And then he said once this caravan came to the fore, it shifted dramatically, especially among suburban women who were terrified of seeing the images that they saw, and suddenly began to see, these invaders kind of pillaging through the streets like the barbarians of old, and that began to shift the polling, he said, quite dramatically.
Wow. I think you're right. I think there was a twofold. I think Kavanaugh mobilized what happened with the Kavanaugh hearings. It mobilized the right, and then the caravan. Immigration is the GOP issue, and it is a real thing. And the media actually told us that the caravan was real when they thought it was going to hurt Trump, and now that they know it's helping get out the base, now it's a myth, it's a phantom, it's not real, even though it's getting bigger every day.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem for them to contend with. If the Republicans hold, they are going to have a challenge next year, and that is they're going to have to do something serious on two fronts. One is immigration, and the other is going to be health care. There can be no more John McCain thumbs-down things. They're going to have to fix that, and I think they will, and they can. You have to understand that if this goes as I suggested it will, not only will you have a net 6 to 8 more Republican senators, but the majority of those, if you leave outside somebody like Mitt Romney, the majority of those are Trumpers. They've run on the Trump program. They get support from Trump. And so as a result, I don't think you'll ever see another thumbs down moment or another moment where we have a Supreme Court justice depending on a senator from Maine.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this. I know we're running out of time, Larry, and I appreciate your time. We're talking with Larry Schweikert, New York Times #1 best-selling author. You can follow him on Twitter at Larry Schweikert. Great stuff, great information you're not hearing anywhere else. When President Trump does say that the fake news media is the enemy of the American people, do you agree with him?
I do, and we've seen this before. Say when has this occurred before? Well, in the Jacksonian era, people don't understand that newspapers were never created to distribute news. The origin of newspapers was as an organ of the Democratic Party to distribute propaganda about the Democrat Party. And later, the Whigs and then the Republicans figured, oh, yeah, they're doing this, we better do it too. So before the Civil War, fully 85%, according to one newspaper historian, 85% of all newspapers were nothing more than propaganda rags. And so, what's happened today is that they are totally taking the position and the issues of our enemies, whether it's Iran or ISIS or whoever else. They are standing up for everybody who hates and despises America. And I think that a large portion of the American people are getting sick of that.
I absolutely agree with you, Larry, and it's really great to meet your acquaintance. I appreciate you agreeing to do this interview and giving us a completely different take of what people are hearing day in, day out from the media, that it's a shoo-in that the Democrats are going to take the House. I think you've certainly called that into legitimate doubt here today, and I agree with you. I think the Republicans are going to hold the House based on your reporting and your numbers, and I really appreciate you coming on the program.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
All righty. Larry.
If you believe the Second Amendment protects your right to defend your home with a firearm, where do you turn if the government confiscates your gun? To the courthouse. The Founding Fathers created your Seventh Amendment right to a civil jury to protect your freedoms. The courthouse is where you fight the overreaching hand of government. And the Brad Hendricks Law Firm is where the fight starts. Call the Brad Hendricks Law Firm at 501-221-0444. The Brad Hendricks Law Firm in Little Rock, standing ready using the Seventh Amendment to protect your Second Amendment rights.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, folks, welcome back on this election day. Polls have been open for about 25 minutes. The polls will remain open until 7:30 tonight. Today is the day to go vote. Joining us now, we've got Congressman French Hill is back with us. French, welcome, sir.
Paul, thanks for the invitation. Great to be with you.
Yes, sir. I'm assuming you're going to be going to the polls, waving signs. What are your plans today?
Well, we got up early this morning and did all the TV shows at between 6 and 7, and we've done some other media, and now we're headed out to do some sign waving, headed to Faulkner County.
Great. That's fantastic. It's very important to vote. I mean, that goes without saying. We've had some people call in today and say, listen, we have our troops that have secured this freedom, so we need to take advantage of it. We need to participate. But I just wanted to ask you, we certainly have two clear, distinct paths that America can go down. The one we're going down now versus what the Democrats want.
Well, look, we're better off than we were 2 years ago. We have a better national security set of standards due to President Trump's leadership. We have a better economy, the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years, rising wages. Things are much better off, and our citizens know that. And if we want to stay on this course, we need to elect the members of the House. I need everybody and your listeners to get out and vote for our Republican members of Congress here in Arkansas. We need to hold the House. And we don't want to go backwards, and that's the direction Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, Jerry Nadler want to go. They want to raise taxes, increase regulatory burden on small businesses, relitigate the Kavanaugh hearing, relitigate the whole Trump election from 2016. This is not what the American people want. What we want to do is keep moving this country forward. And that's what the Republicans and the Trump administration have done in the past 2 years.
And I would remind everybody the economy is doing really, really well right now. We have wages that are up. We have jobs that are, people can't fill. I mean, it's really, really good. And we've got tax cuts that the Democrats want to take away. And there's now talk about more tax cuts if the Republicans can, maintain control of the House. I mean, the stakes are really, really high in terms of, the Americans, Arkansans, our individual well-being here.
Exactly right. We want to continue to benefit our families with tax relief for savings and investing purposes so they can have more control over the way they spend their money and save for their priorities. That's an important attribute of what we want to do. We want to have our Congress work with the president and fix this broken immigration system and get the border security that we need along our southwest border. And once and for all, we want to bring market-based solutions to fix our health care system so that more people can afford health insurance coverage for their health, both with and without pre-existing conditions. That's not the challenge. The challenge is getting the opposition party to stop blocking these bills and allow us to fix both the broken healthcare system and our very broken immigration system.
And that's the thing with Speaker Nancy Pelosi. None of that stuff's going to happen. And the Democrats who have fielded, the Democrat opponents in these races, in your race, I mean, they're going to support who the party bosses want. And it's pretty clear Nancy Pelosi would be the Speaker of the House if the Democrats win here. So, I mean, she's so outside of your average Arkansans, thoughts and convictions. It's not even funny.
Yeah, she's laid out her plan. She wants to go towards nationalized health care. She wants to curtail our Second Amendment rights. She wants to raise the regulatory burden on small businesses. She wants to raise taxes on income for individuals and for businesses. And she doesn't support President Trump's foreign policy agenda. So we know where Nancy Pelosi is going, and that's not what the American people voted for in 2016. And so that's why this midterm election is more important than usual, and we need all of our conservative friends and neighbors out voting today.
Get out.
And so I really
vote.
urge people to vote. I ask for their vote if they live in the 2nd Congressional District. And we know, Paul, that it's important to have this conversation today because about 50% of our electorate vote on the traditional election day, and that's why we need people out.
Yes. Get out and vote. Folks, it's Congressman French Hill asking for your vote. Those of you listening on 101.1, The Answer out of Little Rock in the 2nd Congressional District. Congressman French Hill, best of luck in your bid for re-election. I got a feeling it's going to be positive.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate the time with you so much. All the best.
All righty. You too. Folks, that's all the time we have for today. Our whiteboard today and the rest of the week says votes have consequences. So go make the consequences. Make those consequences a reality. And the consequences are that the Republicans hold the House, they make gains in the Senate, and tomorrow the left could very well just be spinning into irrelevancy in a historic fashion. But you got to go vote. Call all of your friends in Tennessee, Missouri, Florida, everywhere. Call them in California. And make sure that people turn out and vote to keep this country moving in the direction it's going.